You may have been wondering how huge and heavy space rockets actually accelerates above the Earth up to high altitude in space without being pulled down by force of gravity despite its weight. Now, let's flash back our mind to the elementary physics and how gravitational pull actually works in reality. Isaac Newton was the first person to prove the force of gravity of an object. As an inventor who has dedicated all his life in researching and discovering things that occur in the universe, one day Isaac Newton was sitting under an apple tree and a ripe apple fell off from the tree. So differing thoughts start running in his mind. Why did the apple fall down and not accelerate upward? That was the question that led Isaac to seek the physical manifestation behind the force of gravity. Isaac later discovered that the Earth's gravitation is natural, and it varies with respect to the weight of the body experiencing it. That is, an object having much weight will experience heavy gravitational pull if any force tends to lift it into the atmosphere. Remember that Elon Musk studied physics in college, so he must have mastered how gravitational pull works and how to overcome gravitational pull for every weight that tends to go upwards. Practically, it will take a propeller to accelerate an object and aid it to overcome gravitational pull for it to reach space. Welcome to Tech Space. Stay with us as we show you how Elon Musk plans to launch the biggest rocket booster into space and the type of powerful rocket engine which will be built to achieve it. Elon Musk and SpaceX have successfully manufactured a working rocket known as the Starship booster that fires up the main Starship into an altitude where it experiences almost zero gravity in space before the booster automatically cuts off itself from the Starship and returns to Earth, though the Starship will spontaneously fire its engine to continue journeying into orbit. Falcon Heavy was designed to be able to carry humans into space beyond low Earth orbit, although as of February 2018, SpaceX has confirmed that they will not transport people on Falcon Heavy nor pursue the human rating certification process to transport NASA astronauts. SpaceX conducted Falcon Heavy's maiden launch on February 6, 2018. The rocket carried a Tesla Roadster belonging to SpaceX founder Elon Musk, with a dummy dubbed Starman in the driver's seat as a dummy payload. The second Falcon Heavy launch occurred on April 11, 2019, and all three booster rockets successfully returned to Earth. The third Falcon Heavy launch successfully occurred on June 25, 2019. Since then, Falcon Heavy has been certified for the National Security Space Launch Program. Outside the Falcon 9 Heavy, there's another rocket that is extremely powerful, known as the Saturn V rocket. But the question is, what makes this rocket so powerful? Almost all of the mass and size of this beast is for carrying fuel. The exhaust nozzles are large enough for a tall man to stand inside of when on their side. The fuel is oxygen and kerosene, which mix up themselves violently. Saturn V was so powerful it shook buildings 3 miles away. One fundamental key to the Saturn V's rocket's power, and by that I assume that everyone is talking about payload performance, was the tremendous jump in specific impulse performance of the upper stage J2 engines. This mega vehicle generated 50% more liftoff in round terms, and its payload performance is so powerful that it can tow the American Navy Sea-Jet lander. Now let's look at the horsepower and torque of the Saturn V rocket. Each Saturn V rocket engine has a gas generator, providing 55,000 brake horsepower to pump 976 liters of RP1 and 1,565 liters of liquid oxygen per second into the combustion chamber. This is approximately the same horsepower as the engines used to power a modern ultra-deepwater drill ship, or turned a 10-mile drill stem buried in 5 miles of seafloor. But this was only used to deliver fuel to one rocket engine. It's difficult to relate engine horsepower to rocket thrust. A piston engine doesn't move a craft by itself, so it is normally rated by how much power it delivers to the drive shaft, a value directly related to the throttle. Rockets provide thrust immediately, so are rated by direct thrust, a value that changes with air pressure and craft speed. NASA has selected SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket to launch a robotic mission in July 2022 to explore Psyche, a metal-rich asteroid located between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. The Psyche probe is NASA's first mission assigned to fly on SpaceX's Heavy Lift launcher. But no matter how much power the Saturn V rocket has, the Falcon Heavy can generate 5 times of its horsepower. A Falcon Heavy rocket, formed by combining 3 SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket boosters together, will launch the Psyche mission and 2 smaller NASA science probes from Pad 39A all at a time. SpaceX and United Launch Alliance were eligible to launch the Psyche mission, and NASA officials selected SpaceX's Falcon Heavy for the job. NASA announced the launch contract, valued at $117 million. The The contract value includes the launch service and other mission-related costs, according to NASA. SpaceX's Falcon Heavy proposal was believed to be competing against a ULA bid to launch Psyche on an Atlas V rocket. In a tweet, SpaceX wrote that NASA requires the highest level of launch vehicle reliability for the Psyche mission. With the Psyche launch contract awarded by NASA, SpaceX has confirmed at least 4 missions in its backlog booked on Falcon Heavy rockets, one each for the U.S. Space Force, the National Reconnaissance Office, NASA, and Viasat. The Falcon Heavy rocket is the most powerful launcher currently in operation, with 27 Merlin engines producing some 5.1 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. SpaceX has successfully launched 3 Falcon Heavy missions since 2018, and a 4th flight scheduled in late 2020. A space agency spokesperson said the Falcon Heavy rocket that will launch the Psyche mission will use all new boosters, rather than previously flown hardware recovered from earlier missions. Lucy and Psyche are the 13th and 14th missions selected in NASA's Discovery program, which manages a series of cost-capped planetary science missions. The cost of the Lucy and Psyche missions is limited to $450 million for each project, but the launch vehicle is not counted in the cost cap. The Falcon Heavy platform comprises 3 Falcon 9 stages. The central, or core stage, consists of 2 stages. The upper portion of the core stage holds the payload, the satellites, and whatever else that needs to be placed in orbit. While SpaceX has successfully recovered the booster stages before, this is the first time that it also successfully recovered the core stage. The 3 stages are each powered by 9 Merlin 1D rocket engines. That's 27 engines in total. And the upper stage is powered by a single modified Merlin 1D engine designed to operate in the vacuum of space. All 27 engines fire up at launch, but the 9 of the core stage go idle after the first few seconds. They fire back up once the boosters have expended their energy and dropped off. Since the booster stages expend the bulk of their energy and detach earlier on in the flight, it's easier to recover them. The core stage, on the other hand, fires much later and is traveling much faster. This also means it needs more fuel to return safely and thus leads to an interesting conundrum. SpaceX is getting ready to test its giant new rocket for the first time. The first true Super Heavy booster was rolled out of its high bay to a launch pad Thursday, July 1st, at SpaceX's Starbase site in South Texas. The 230-foot-tall Super Heavy is the first stage of SpaceX's fully reusable Starship transportation system, which the company is developing to help humanity colonize Mars, among other tasks. The upper stage is a 165-foot-tall spacecraft called Starship, a prototype of which aced a 6.2-mile-high test flight. There is another particular Super Heavy, known as Booster 3, which will not fly. SpaceX founder and CEO Elon Musk said via Twitter that it will undergo ground tests intended to pave the way for its successor to launch on the first orbital test flight of the Starship system, which could occur as early as this summer. If all goes according to plan, Booster 4 will splash down in the Gulf of Mexico about 20 miles off the South Texas coast. The Starship element, meanwhile, will power its way to Earth orbit and eventually come down in the Pacific Ocean near the Hawaiian island of Kauai. Additional test flights with other Super Heavy and Starship prototypes will likely follow in relatively quick succession. SpaceX tends to set ambitious milestones, and Musk has said that Starship could be fully up and running by 2023 if development and testing flow as planned. Among the 2 rockets, Super Heavy and the Saturn V rockets, which do you think is the most powerful rocket? Please do well to share your thoughts in the comment section below. And while you're still around, why don't you click on one of those flashing videos on the screen for more content?